Today I'm here to announce that our office will be filing charges against Nick Reiner, who is accused of killing his parents, actor-director Rob Reiner, and photographer-producer Michelle Singer Reiner.
Steven Spielberg and Rob Reiner stand as two giants of modern cinema, each moving in his own lane but driven by the same obsession with storytelling. Spielberg is known for building tense, immersive worlds that pull you straight in, while Reiner carved out his space as a master of sharp comedy and raw human emotion. Different styles, same respect. Their paths crossed often at industry gatherings where admiration flowed easily and conversations about movies never felt forced. That's why a sudden wave of alarming rumors about Rob sent shockwaves through Hollywood and hit Spielberg hard. For a brief moment, confusion and fear took over, and the thought of losing a longtime friend shook him deeply. Just weeks earlier, Spielberg clearly remembered standing at a party while Rob, glowing with pride, talked about his son Nick overcoming addiction and finding his way back home. That joy was real, written all over Rob's face, and the two directors stood there trading ideas, dreaming out loud about future projects and stories still waiting to be told. When exaggerated reports began spreading online, the emotional impact was heavy even before the truth came out. The situation quickly turned into a painful reminder of how fast misinformation can spiral. Thankfully, the rumors were false, but the emotional damage lingered. For Spielberg, it felt like staring into a nightmare version of reality, one no director ever wants to imagine. Nick attended Conan O'Brien's Christmas party Saturday night with his parents, Michelle and Rob. Maybe Nick was not invited to Conan O'Brien's party. He was wearing a hoodie. Reports are that he was acting weird, apparently accosting celebrities outside. Nick reportedly stormed off in a huff after a tiff with Bill Hader of SNL and Barry at Conan's Christmas party, and that Rob had been telling friends they were scared for Nick, and scared for his mental state that it was deteriorating. Spielberg later addressed the situation with visible emotion in a rare media moment. "Rob was not just a colleague, but a friend, a companion on a cinematic journey that I deeply cherish," he said, his voice quiet but loaded with feeling. Every word carried weight, showing just how close that bond ran. He made it clear the scare rattled him not just as a filmmaker, but as a human being. As Spielberg reflected, his eyes showed frustration and sadness mixed together. He spoke about meeting Rob back when they were both young, hungry, and chasing impossible dreams. "I remember Rob back then, full of dreams, yet always humble," he recalled, hands tightening slightly as memories rushed back. The respect never faded, and neither did the admiration. When Spielberg mentioned the films that defined Reiner's legacy, his emotion was impossible to miss. Steven Spielberg spoke with raw honesty as he reflected on what made Rob Reiner different from so many others in Hollywood. He created stories that made people laugh, cry, and really think. He said, "Filmmaking isn't just art, it's connection." Every word landed heavy in the room, and you could feel the respect behind it. To Spielberg, Rob wasn't just the mind behind The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, or Stand By Me. He was the guy who turned laughter into meaning and friendship into something real. As Spielberg grew quieter, the weight of legacy hit him hard. Rob left behind films that will live forever, but the emotional toll of seeing a friend struggle stayed with him.
And he asked me he said, "How did you like my movie?" And I only seen it once, and I didn't love Shining the first time I saw it.
Spielberg publicly reached out to the Reiner family with heartfelt support, writing, "I am deeply saddened by Rob and Michelle's passing," a message meant to express solidarity and compassion during a painful chapter, not to stir drama. He described Rob as a wonderful friend, an extraordinary colleague, and a gifted storyteller, making it clear how deep that bond ran. Then Spielberg shared a private memory, one he rarely talks about, that peeled back the curtain on a much heavier reality. Years earlier, at a relaxed Hollywood gathering, laughter filled the house and old film stories were flying around. But Spielberg noticed Rob standing off to the side alone, holding a drink, looking drained and distant in a way that didn't match the room. Spielberg walked over and asked, "It's been a long time, you don't look too well. What's going on?" Rob paused, sighed, and quietly pulled him onto the balcony away from the noise. That's when Rob opened up and said that Nick was going through a lot, and the fear in his voice was impossible to miss. Spielberg later recalled that Rob spoke about addiction struggles and emotional setbacks in a careful, respectful way. He described feeling torn between being a father and a protector, yet feeling helpless at times. "I could hear the pain in every sentence," Spielberg said. Rob tried to smile, tried to play it cool, but the weight was obvious. Rob finally admitted, "Steven, Nick has been struggling with addiction for years. We've tried treatment, struck to Ray support, everything we could think of, but relapse kept pulling him back. What I feel after all of this is it's not about punishing. If somebody is struggling and has difficulties, you don't punish them for that. And I think a lot of these programs feel like the kid is being punished. And I don't think that's a great way to go. You're a parent and you think, here's my kid running out into the street. He's going to get hit by a truck. You want to keep him." His voice was low, eyes fixed on the dark sky, carrying a pain only a parent could truly understand. Steven Spielberg remembered that night clearly, the moment when Rob Reiner finally let the walls come down. Rob admitted he had poured his heart into making Being Charlie, hoping the project could help his son heal and maybe pull the family closer together. For a while it worked, Rob said, his voice tight. He stayed clean for some time, but now it feels like we're back in the storm again. Fear crept into every word. I'm terrified, Steven. I wake up scared that one day I might lose him forever. Spielberg listened closely, leaning in, choosing his words carefully. Rob, you've done everything a father could do, he said firmly. Nick is lucky to have you and Michelle standing with him. But Rob just shook his head slowly, his voice cracking under the weight of it all. Sometimes we listen too much to doctors and not enough to our son, he admitted. I just want to save him, but the harder I try, the more helpless I feel. The two men sat there in silence for a moment, taking slow sips of wine, letting the truth hang heavy in the air. That conversation never left Spielberg's mind. Time moved on. Years passed, but the emotion stayed fresh. By October 2025, Spielberg and Rob crossed paths again at the Governor's Awards hosted by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences in Los Angeles. The room was filled with legends, polished speeches, and memories of Hollywood's golden years. As Spielberg entered the hall, he spotted Rob across the room, smiling wide, laughing with old friends. It stopped him in his tracks. He walked straight over, and the two embraced tightly, patting each other on the back like brothers who had weathered storms together. Rob, you look great, Spielberg said with genuine surprise. How have you been? Rob laughed, eyes glowing in a way Spielberg hadn't seen in years. Steven, you won't believe this, he said excitedly. Nick's home, he's doing much better, clean for months now, working small jobs, talking with us again like before. Spielberg felt warmth hit his chest instantly. He remembered those late-night confessions, the fear, the exhaustion. He squeezed Rob's shoulder and smiled. That's amazing, you and Michelle never gave up. After all these years, hope is finally here. The relief felt real, not forced. They stayed off to the side after that, talking movies, young actors, and ideas still buzzing in their heads. But Spielberg couldn't stop thinking about Rob's smile. It carried rare optimism, a piece hard-earned after years of anxiety. Looking back, Spielberg later admitted his voice dropped when the memory surfaced. Who could have imagined? He thought that just months later, life would remind us how fragile hope can be. Steven Spielberg later admitted he still remembers the shock that hit him when he first read about the tragic situation surrounding Rob Reiner's family. All that hope, which had only just started to glow, felt like it vanished in a heartbeat. Spielberg stared out the window for a long time, his thoughts drifting back to that night filled with laughter, lights, and optimism. Rob, I'm happy for you, he had said back then. Hold on to hope. Rob had looked back, eyes lighting up, nodding quietly. Only later did Spielberg realize just how fragile that hope truly was. Life doesn't move in straight lines, and its turns often arrive without warning. In the days after the heartbreaking news cycle and emotional fallout, Spielberg found himself rewatching The Princess Bride, one of his favorite films. He smiled through tears when he heard the iconic line, "As you wish," whispering to himself, "Rob, you lived fully and your work will never fade." Spielberg ended his public message with words filled with care and restraint, offering peace, respect, and gratitude rather than speculation. He emphasized that Rob's creative legacy, his humor, warmth, and humanity could never be erased. Hollywood felt heavier in that moment, but the films remained bright, alive, and deeply human. Truthfully, Spielberg and Reiner were never daily hangout friends. They weren't calling each other every week or showing up at each other's homes unannounced. But inside the film industry, their bond was built on something just as strong: mutual respect. Both men shared a deep belief in storytelling as a human force, shaped by Jewish cultural roots and artistic households that valued expression and curiosity. Rob Reiner gravitated toward grounded, human-centered stories, films about friendship, love, fear, and inner conflict. Spielberg, on the other hand, leaned into scale, wonder, and emotional intensity, crafting worlds that felt massive yet deeply personal. Different lanes, same purpose. They crossed paths often at award ceremonies, film seminars, and major industry events, always exchanging respect. Reiner once said that Spielberg's ability to fuse emotion with imagery was something every director could learn from. Spielberg returned that admiration by praising Reiner's rare talent for reaching straight into the heart of everyday humanity. That praise, spoken quietly and sincerely, remains one of the highest forms of respect a filmmaker can offer another. Which brings the focus back to Spielberg himself. What kind of director is he really? How does he use light, sound, and framing to create stories that don't just reach the eyes, but carve themselves into memory? Steven Allen Spielberg was born on December 18, 1946, in Cincinnati, Ohio, into a family of Eastern European Jewish descent. He was the eldest child and the only son, growing up alongside three younger sisters. His father, Arnold Spielberg, was a brilliant electrical engineer working with massive early-era computers. His mother, Lee, was a passionate pianist, filling the house with music, warmth, and creativity. Those contrasts, logic and emotion, structure and imagination, would later shape one of the most powerful storytelling voices cinema has ever known. Steven Spielberg grew up in a home that felt warm and close but never permanent. Every time he settled in, boxes appeared again, and another move followed because of his father's work. New streets, new schools, new faces. Nothing stayed the same for long. Familiar places vanished, and Steven had to adapt fast in a world that kept shifting under his feet. "I remember every move," Steven later said. "Each time I felt like I lost a piece of myself. But that loss shaped something powerful. It taught him how to watch people, how to listen instead of talk, and how to quietly find his place in unfamiliar rooms. Those skills didn't come from comfort. They came from constant change." At just 6 years old, his parents took him to see The Greatest Show on Earth, directed by Cecil B. DeMille. When the lights went down and the circus exploded across the screen, young Steven froze in his seat, eyes wide, barely breathing. Walking out of the theater, he grabbed his mother's hand and whispered, "I want to make things that scare people and make them feel joy like that." Lee smiled, brushed his hair gently, and said, "Then you must first learn how to tell stories, my dear Stevie." That moment stuck forever. When Steven was 12, his father gave him an 8mm camera and everything changed. He started filming non-stop family trips, backyard scenes, and toy train crashes. He staged himself just to recreate the fear that once haunted his dreams. He told his sisters, "You play the victims, I'll save everyone." Those grainy little films became his way of controlling fear and shaping chaos into something meaningful. But outside the house, life wasn't gentle. After the family moved to Phoenix, Arizona in 1957, Steven found himself one of the only Jewish kids around. He later spoke openly about being bullied, about punches, insults, and the quiet shame of isolation. "I always wondered why I was different," he admitted, so he pulled inward, observing the world instead of jumping into it. That pain sharpened his empathy. It gave him a deep understanding of loneliness, fear, and hope, emotions that would later pulse through his films. At 13, Steven made a 40-minute war film called Escape to Nowhere and won a youth film competition. By 16, he poured all his savings into Firelight, a science fiction movie over 2 hours long. It screened one night at a local theater to only a few dozen people. But to Steven, it felt massive. As the lights came up, he told himself with absolute certainty, "One day people will line up to watch my films." Steven Spielberg later revealed that one of the most painful moments of his teenage years came when he was just 16. During a family camping trip, Steven accidentally captured something on film that would stay with him for years. While recording near the campfire, he unknowingly filmed his mother, Leigh, holding hands with Bernie Adler, his father's closest friend. The moment hit him like a shockwave. He immediately turned off the camera and buried the truth deep inside, keeping that secret for nearly 3 years. When his parents divorced in 1965, his father Arnold quietly took all the blame to shield Lee and protect the family from public judgment. Steven, who had moved to California with his father, didn't understand the full picture back then. In a moment of anger and confusion, he turned his back on Arnold and once said coldly, "Dad destroyed this family." Arnold didn't argue, didn't defend him. LF, he simply nodded in silence. That pain didn't fade quickly. It simmered for over 15 years. Steven grew emotionally distant from his father, blaming him for every crack in the family foundation. That unresolved conflict, combined with loneliness and guilt, shaped Spielberg's deep, layered understanding of humanity. The tension between love and resentment, silence and forgiveness would later echo clearly in his films, especially in The Fabelmans, where personal memory and storytelling collided head-on. By the late 1960s, Spielberg's talent was impossible to ignore. In 1968, his short film Amblin screened at a film festival and stunned executives at Universal Studios. Steven knew right then this wasn't a hobby anymore. This was his life. He dropped out of college, became an unpaid intern at Universal, and secretly used empty offices at night to work on his own projects. In 1969, at just 22 years old, Spielberg signed a long-term directing contract with Universal, becoming the youngest director in Hollywood history to land such a deal. He started in television, directing episodes of Night Gallery and Columbo. But it was the 1971 TV movie Duel that changed everything. The tense story of a man hunted by a mysterious truck gripped audiences and critics alike. That success opened the door to his first feature film, The Sugarland Express. But the real explosion came in 1975 with Jaws. The shark thriller became a cultural phenomenon, earning over $470 million worldwide and creating the concept of the summer blockbuster. Spielberg later admitted the shoot was brutal. "There were moments I thought the shark would get me before the film was finished," he joked. But Jaws turned him into a superstar and reshaped the film industry forever. What followed proved Spielberg wasn't just about fear and spectacle. Films like Close Encounters of the Third Kind and E.T. the Extraterrestrial revealed his compassionate core. He later tackled historical and war dramas such as Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan, confronting moral conflict and human suffering head-on. In 1994, Spielberg co-founded DreamWorks, producing major hits across genres. Even into the 2000s, he continued delivering powerful films like Lincoln and Bridge of Spies, proving his creative fire never cooled. Despite his fame, Spielberg kept his personal life guarded. He married actress Amy Irving in 1985, and they welcomed a son, Max Samuel, later that year. The marriage ended in 1989, but both stayed respectful and united as parents. Amy later said, "We did what was best for Max." Not long after, Spielberg found lasting love with Kate Capshaw, whom he directed in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, a partnership that would become both personal and enduring. During the audition process, Steven Spielberg met Kate Capshaw twice and was instantly struck by her screen test. "I watched Kate's audition tape and knew she was right for the role," Spielberg later recalled. Kate once joked, "I never imagined that a role filled with screaming and chaos would lead me to the man of my life." During filming in Sri Lanka and the United States, the two naturally grew closer through shared meals, long talks, and quiet moments between intense shoot days. At the time, Spielberg was still in a committed relationship with Amy Irving, so his connection with Kate remained professional and respectful. It wasn't until 1989, after his divorce, that Spielberg and Capshaw officially began dating and later moved in together. Kate later explained, "We grew close on set, but we knew we had to wait for the right moment for anything real to begin." Before their wedding, Kate converted to Judaism, and in 1991 they married in both civil and Orthodox Jewish ceremonies. Spielberg later shared that marrying Kate helped him reconnect deeply with his Jewish identity and heritage. Their union grew into a large blended family. Kate brought her daughter Jessica from a previous marriage, while Spielberg had a son Max from his marriage to Irving. Together, they welcomed additional biological and adopted children, creating one of Hollywood's most well-known extended families. Their marriage has now lasted more than 3 decades, an extraordinary rarity in the entertainment world. Kate gradually stepped away from acting to focus on family life and painting, while Spielberg continued directing at the highest level. Their family includes 7 children, all of whom have grown into independent adults pursuing their own creative paths. Some entered film, acting, or entertainment, while others chose different directions entirely. In 2020, one of Spielberg's daughters publicly spoke about her personal career choices, emphasizing that they were made independently and with family support. Spielberg has always maintained a consistent stance. His role as a parent is rooted in care, guidance, and respect, not control. Beyond his own family, Spielberg also became a mentor figure to young actors early in their careers, most notably Drew Barrymore during E.T. the Extraterrestrial. She needed stability. Spielberg once said, "Being there for her wasn't just responsibility, it was meaningful." Today, even at 79 years old, Spielberg remains deeply active in film. He continues developing new projects and revisiting classic franchises with the same curiosity he had as a teenager. "I've never felt tired of storytelling," he said with a quiet smile. "Every film is a new chance to say something honest." In recent years, Spielberg has also focused more on health and balance, making lifestyle adjustments to keep his body and mind strong enough for the demands of modern filmmaking. Close collaborators say his creativity remains sharp, fueled by discipline and purpose rather than pressure. Following recent emotional reflections on the fragility of life and long-standing industry friendships, including heartfelt words about Rob Reiner, Spielberg reminded audiences of something simple but powerful. "Awards fade," he said. "Fame fades, but people are the story." And that belief has defined his entire career. If this story moved you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Please comment below with your reflections on Steven Spielberg, Rob Reiner, or the films that shaped your life. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotionally rich stories and deep dives into Hollywood legends. We'll see you in the next.